Welcome to More Than Renovating, a Renovate and real estate podcast. Our founder, Belinda Smith, talks to industry experts to provide you with the knowledge and information you need to make renovating for love and profit your reality. Belinda will also chat to some of her Renovation Mastery members, who are just everyday people doing extraordinary things, following their passions in the renovation and property space. So, let's jump straight into the episode. Enjoy.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Renovate and Real Estate podcast. And today I have special guests with me, Stephen Cook and Felicity Walker. These two lovely people have formed a partnership in the renovation space under the banner Property Reimagined. And so I'm going to be asking them some questions today about how all of that evolved and the kinds of work that they do and how their whole lives in renovating and building evolved as well. So welcome, guys.
Hello, everybody.
Felicity, I'll start with you. How did you and Steve become business partners in Property Reimagined?
Well, we met at a property course and, seemed to get along and have ideas in common, and then met up a few more times for coffees and things like that. And eventually what happened was Steve actually asked to do a JV with me because he had the money and serviceability to do a deal, but he felt he didn't have enough knowledge, whereas I was probably more the knowledge person. So we partnered up in the deal, which was a backyard subdivision and renovate the front house. And it just worked really well as a business partnership. So we sort of said, well, maybe there's some room or value here to come from the two of us working together, because Steve's loves all the hands-on side of things and the reno and fiddling around with organising the contractors and all that sort of stuff, whereas I tend to be more on the side of the marketing and the networking and bringing clients in and talking them through. And it works well because both of us really could do the whole thing on our own.
Yeah.
But because we work in partnership, we can take the bits that we're both best at and give the other person the bits that we're not good at or don't like. So it works really well as a partnership.
And I know, Steve, you've been really active in my community here and there, answering questions on more technical side of building. And like, you are the real hands-on kind of person. You really do have a grasp about building and plans and what needs to happen and what order. So do you think that you having those skills has meant that you guys are quite a successful team? Like, is it the way that you work together?
I think absolutely. For an example, we have a current quote for a damaged unit in St Kilda. So Felicity, she found that one and she's handballed it to me, say, go and have a look and see what you think it will cost, or give a quote to the client to say, okay, replace the floorboards, paint, new carpet, whatever. So that's what I do. Whereas Felicity is the one who sources that, and then she'll hand that over to the client and say, yeah, here we go. So I'm happy doing the hands-on stuff, and I'm happy to advise people when they do post a question, because I think I do have that knowledge now.
Yeah, I agree. I love watching the way that you guys work together. So Felicity, how do you come across these clients?
Networking mostly. Sometimes it's just chatting to people at various events I go to. I go out and do lots of stuff. I answer questions on various groups I'm in, staying out there, staying active, just keeping my eyes open. Although I don't necessarily do a lot of the hands-on stuff in our business, I do have a lot of background in property and have done lots of renovating in the past. So because I have that knowledge, I can still talk to people in the way they initially need to be talked to, in terms of being able to talk about their job and understand what they're trying to achieve and all that. I think if I didn't have that background, it would be a lot harder to do what I do. But because they can come and chat to me and I obviously know what I'm talking about, it just gives people that confidence that they're dealing with a team that understands what needs to be done and how it needs to be done.
100%.
My background, I'm an aircraft maintenance engineer, but when I did my own house extension, I got 3 quotes from builders and they had just horrendous prices. So I said, no, I can do this myself. That's probably where it started. So I already had the tools. I did the extension on my house myself. I said, I can do this as a business. And because when I met Felicity in that, I said, I can do this, Felicity. I've got the skills of doing the renovation side, building side. I learned all that knowledge. And that's where we are today.
So I think a beautiful point about that is that you don't have to be a married couple to go into a renovation business together. You can rely and find somebody with complementing skills. And the power that you have is, like, I call it the dynamic duo. When I look at everything that you can do, Steve, and what you can do, Felicity, to put these deals together to make sure that you do the renovation beautifully and that the client wins and you guys win too. It's just perfect. It's a perfect scenario.
Yeah.
Yep, I think so.
Advantage that Steve's wife and daughter are both quite keen on design type stuff. So we get extra stuff coming in from them.
Yeah. My daughter is a interior designer.
Oh, that's fantastic. You know what is really good about that is the fact that you guys are already experts in your field, but you also are open-minded to everybody else's opinions. So important when you're doing a renovation, as you know, you'll see things a certain way, but somebody else who's also got some skills will say, hey, you know, what about if we put the toilet over there, or we do this with the bathroom? And then you've got all of that collective knowledge. So I don't know whether it's good luck, Steve, that your family have ended up like that, or whether you've paved the way because you've been interested in building and renovating.
I can tell you now, my middle son, he's now become an apprentice carpenter. So I'm going to have a builder in the future. and my daughter's partner is a plumber.
That was my husband and my dream, and we ended up with a Facebook ads guy. So I don't know what happened, but
so we're building a team in-house.
I'd love a team in-house, but my guy's never picked up a hammer. Not that he's a beautiful son, so I forgive him. All right. So Felicity, tell me about your journey right from the beginning. You started in property early 2000s or before then?
Probably the late 90s. I did a lot of stuff initially in the what were called wraps back then, or vendor finance, which is where I would buy houses and on-sell them to other people with finance. Did like 20 or more of those. And that's where a lot of my other knowledge came from, because, you know, I'd get a house and then, oh, heck, I need to renovate this a little bit. So I'd do a bit of renovating, or I'd paint it, and then other skills started to come in because there was only so many I could do. So then I started, you know, having to learn how to work in a JV, for example, with a money partner, or get vendors to leave money in the deal. I mean, I had to become really creative at solving problems. So a lot of my skill now really does date back to then, because you know, you do a few and it's okay, but beyond that, you have to start learning how to solve more interesting problems. So yeah, I did that for quite a while. I bought off the plan back then. I built my own house as an owner builder, then sort of got lost in the weeds for a while with marriage separations and a whole lot of other stuff. And yeah, sort of come back into phase 2, as I call it, up and running, doing more into the subdivision and development space rather than just, yeah, well, vendor finance is really difficult nowadays anyway in Victoria from the legal perspective. So yeah, just sort of coming into the more renovation development side of things now.
Awesome. Steve, take me right back. Where did your love for property investment and renovation begin?
We had a few stumbles in the beginning. My wife and I, we bought an NRAS property in Queensland. Now, the property itself is good, but it probably tanked $100,000 from after we bought it.
Just explain NRAS to the people.
NRAS, National Rental Serviceability, and that was in the Kevin Rudd era. So what happens is the government, both the state government, which would be Queensland, and the federal government would give the owner of the house $10,000 per year tax-free, but you would have to subsidise the rent to the renter, 25% subsidised, and that works. It works great. So it was a new build. You had a renter straight away, and unfortunately, the house depreciated, didn't go up. So that ends in 1 year's time. That's okay, but I wasn't scared. I wasn't put off because we had that hurdle. I also bought a hotel room in the city. Again, sold it for the same price I bought it for after 5 years. It was good cash flow, but we needed the money to move on. And then probably, like I said, 2010, I did the extension on my house and realised I had the skills to do this for a business. My mother passed away, and of course I had a bit of money. So I said, now what do I do with it? I want to use it and invest in property. And then went to the seminar where I met Felicity, put our heads together, and away we went.
And I saw the renovation that you guys did together, that first renovation. So Felicity, you might take me through that a little bit. What did that deal look like?
That was where we were looking around for a backyard subdivision. So took a little while to find one that fitted financially as well as every other reason. And hit upon that one. Had a few snags along the way with governments changing some regulations, which affected what we could do on the block a little bit. But essentially, yeah, we'd started out originally, we were only going to do a fairly minor cosmetic renovation on the front house when we did the original FISO, but with the time it took to sort out all the other problems with planning and all the rest, we'd held it a lot longer than we'd initially thought we might. So the market had moved quite a bit in the time, and we decided, looking at the numbers, that there was a lot of money to be made in doing a full structural renovation. Essentially, we converted in and put in extra bedroom, added a proper ensuite, and did some other stuff like that. And also Steve really wanted the experience of running a full-on renovation job from start to finish. So it was sort of like we lost a bit of profit because it took a lot longer to do it with Steve doing a lot of the work himself, but we figured that was like paying for his apprenticeship, because all the stuff that he learnt by doing himself was worth it, because he's now got all that knowledge and experience that he can pull into the other jobs that he's now doing for the business. So yeah, and the end result was just stunningly gorgeous. I mean, hats off to Steve with the work he did. It was just such a gorgeous house, and we had it open for inspection. The first one was on grand final day in Melbourne, which is notorious for being really dead because everybody's out running around getting ready for their parties in the afternoon.
We had 22 groups come through, 5 offers on the day, sold it on the next Monday.
Sold it above asking price. And that was at a time when the market wasn't flat, but it wasn't hot like it is right now. So to even get above the asking price was really good. And even now I talk to people or other agents in the agent or whatever, that agency, and they say, oh yeah, I remember that house. They all still remember how it looked because they'd been in charge of, they'd gone on the tour when the agency first sold it to us, and then they saw what it looked like when they sold it again after we'd done the renovation, and they were all just blown away by what we'd done with that place.
Stunning before and after photos that tell the whole story. And I just want to commend you guys, Steve included. You did a great renovation. I think people always think that they're going to start out and they're never, ever going to have a less than perfect result, both emotionally, time-wise, money-wise. Like, it's just going to be amazing. And the truth is, everyone cuts their teeth on a deal like that. Like, there's going to be something where you go, hang on a minute, this was great, our outcome was good, we made money, but next time we'll increase our profit margins, or we can increase our profit margins, or the time it takes by doing this different, that different, and that different. So that's exactly what you guys did and have done moving forward, which is why you can take all of that knowledge with you and work with clients on their projects. All right, so what advice do you have to others who would be looking at partnering up like you guys have, potentially doing joint venture deals, like with each other, or perhaps working on client projects?
Don't be scared. Don't be scared of using other people that have different skills to what you have. When you combine, that's what a joint venture is, a partnership is. My advice, don't be scared to use other people.
I'd say take the time to get to know each other first, because I've often heard, partnerships, they're like a marriage. And in some ways they are. And you don't know how bad it can be until something goes wrong. And it's all very nice to have met once or twice and everybody's happy and smiley and all the rest. But you really need to have had those conversations long before you get to the point of signing up partnerships. You need to talk about, well, what if things go wrong? How are we going to handle it? I think one of the biggest strengths Steve and I have is when something does happen, neither of us sit there and go, oh, it's all your fault, it's all mine. It's not about blaming anybody. You just go, okay, this is what's happened, or this is a scenario. How do we move forward from here? And we're both really good at putting our creative hats on and coming up with solutions and implementing them. And we don't bother with finger pointing and blaming, because it's a waste of time. It doesn't achieve anything.
Maybe start small. Do a small one together. Like you said, cut your teeth on the small one. If it does go south, you're not going to lose too much, but it's a learning process.
Yeah, I agree. I think that 1 or 2 cups of coffee together is not enough to really work out whether you're going to gel together on a job. And when you're starting to put together your joint venture agreements and you're asking each other all of those questions, if this happens, then that, if this happens, then that, if there's an exit strategy, what might that look like? All those kinds of things. You start to work out whether you're compatible personally before you even get the deal, which is awesome. And I know you guys work really, really well together. Is there one type of deal that you like to look for right now? What's your favorite strategy?
I like adding strategies together. I tend to like deals where there's more than one thing involved. So the one I did with Steve initially was a classic in that it's a subdivision with sell the back lot with plans and permits, but it's also a renovation. And I tend to like having more than one angle to a deal, just because it's more interesting and challenging, but B, because it gives you better potential to make a profit. Because you've got two profit centers then, not just the renovated house, you've also then got the land at the back. The more you can do in terms of adding extra strategies in, the better your chance of a successful project from a financial perspective. So
I think I'd like to get to the stage where we could buy a property with a house to renovate, subdivide the block, and build our own at the back. So that would be my go-to.
Yeah, it's a brilliant strategy. It's a brilliant strategy, Steve. Okay, so what's been your favourite job so far?
It's easy. It's Lilydale.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, it went from an ugly duckling, and then the finished product, and I am proud of it. Very proud of it. And the fact that it sold pretty much on the day is just proof. So yeah, that was the best one we've done. We've had another one because of COVID. It's stagnated.
Yeah.
We've had a couple of deals. And one's been going since the start of COVID. It is just starting Monday. Finally, it's a subdivision. The client, she wants the back block subdivided. That's all. She doesn't want the renovation, but that has taken a year and a half to get to Monday.
You guys in Victoria have had so many disruptions. So I agree.
It's killing us.
You know what I loved about what you just said before, Steve, was that it was the satisfaction of seeing what you could create from an ugly duckling is the thing that you remember the most. So quite often in the property space, people just focus on the profit alone. And I think the profit's important. Obviously, if you've got a lot of energy expenditure, you want it to return monetary. But not a lot of people talk about how fulfilling doing a renovation is. From a personal perspective.
And
the door,
I'm not selfish. I mean, yes, we're in it to make money. We're all in it to make money. But I wanted the house to be someone that the buyer would be really proud of. And I'm not going to sell a substandard product.
Yeah.
There's one thing I did learn from doing it is I can't be as fussy as if it was my own house. I've got to learn to just put the rose-colored glasses on and go, it's okay.
Close enough.
Close enough.
I do love it when I'm in a workshop and I asked to see the hands of all the perfectionists in a room and people put their hands up like that.
Oh.
Yeah, yours went up and other people nudge their partners. It's really quite amusing, but it can slow down a renovation just a little bit. And but I love the fact that you don't want to turn out rubbish for someone. You want them to be happy with what they received. I'm the same. But if you want to do things 110%, maybe 95% is where we should play it, or back near the 90%, maybe that's enough.
Yeah. Look, it's a learning process, but the thing is, if we have a great product, then Felicity, we've discussed going to real estate agents and using the house as a promotion. So if you do a great job on each house you do or each project, then that becomes your selling market, right?
Yeah.
And if you do a great job, it sells itself. That's my philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can springboard. I mean, you're building brand in the marketplace, and you can springboard off your achievements. That's awesome. All right. So how have you, if you've struck a problem during a renovation, name that problem and what you did to find a solution. There's always one.
Yeah. I've got to go back to Lilydale again. When we first did the subdivision planning, it was a battle axe. But then the private town planner said, unfortunately, the house is too close to the boundary, so the driveway to the back block became common property. So the problem is it increased the cost of that subdivision by about 70 grand because we had to put all the services in and the driveway in, blah, 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 to get it done. But that was a problem we had to overcome. Yeah. So we could have probably said, oh, it's too late now because we have bought the property. All right, so we had to just go, right, what do we need to do now to get around that problem and fix it? Yes, spend a bit of money, but got the right plan in place and implemented it. Yeah.
Yeah. Once you're in it, you're in it. That's exactly right. There's no point saying, okay, we should have done this, we should have done that. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who missed it? There's no point. It's like, okay, this is what we're faced with. What's the best thing we can do to come out in a positive fashion, to come out still winning? So good on you. How did you feel about that when it was unfolding, Felicity? Did we have a tantrum?
No. Nothing you can do about it. That's just the way it is. And, we it was a bit unfortunate because initially the driveway was down the left-hand side, but that wasn't wide enough to get to the back. But the right-hand side had like a brick wall and lots of vegetation, and we thought there was enough space. But the killer in the end was actually, I think it was the air conditioning units or heating units on the outside of the house on that side. They took just enough off the driveway that it wasn't considered wide enough. So we only missed out by probably 5 to 10 centimetres. It wasn't a lot.
That's not a lot.
No, but it's like, well, what do? You can't change it. So you just got to work out how you're going to solve it and move on.
Yeah.
So frustrating. You think that the councils would change the regulations for you or allow it, but they often don't. So
the town plan tried, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. All right. So what's on the horizon for you two, do you think?
Well, it's certainly gotten a lot busier now that COVID's over in Melbourne.
Yeah.
We've now got like 3 jobs all suddenly going whoosh and start. So, which is great. Yeah. But certainly, we want to continue building up what we're doing. It's been difficult you haven't been able to go out and meet people, and it has made life harder in terms of building a consultancy type business because, usually part of what I do is going and chatting to people over coffees and all that sort of thing. And that's pretty much been off the ledger for a while. So it's good to see that we're finally getting these opportunities coming through. And I think too, starting to get our niche, it seems to be sort of investors, like property investors rather than homeowners. That seems to be where we're hitting the mark, probably because we talk that lingo and we understand all the stuff about subdivisions and what have you. And it just seems to be we're getting a good footing in that sort of market. So I would expect that we'll probably end up doing quite a lot more of these smaller development type scenarios. So which will be good.
And you happy doing that kind of work too, Steve? That suits you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think what Felicity said, we need to find people with finance that want to invest, because myself, I'm over 60 now, so serviceability is getting pretty low. So we need other people that can finance or want to invest in a property, but let us run it.
And you can take care of it. So that brings me to a really good point. Like, that's a really good point to raise, is that just because individually, you can't continue renovating doesn't mean that you can't continue renovating.
Yeah,
like if finance prevents you as an individual, the beauty of joint ventures is that you can partner up with somebody else. And the beauty of working on client projects or working for other people is that they hold the responsibility of the finance quite often, if that's the way the deal is structured. It's really cool if you hit the investment space as well, because they have an understanding of how all of this unfolds. Like, it's not foreign to people in the investment world to know that if you renovate a property, you're enforcing value upon that property, and then you're going to end up in some kind of profit at the end. So they kind of trust in the process already.
Yes.
Well, I have a lot of connections with people who are into developing, so they're interested in the subdivision part, but the whole renovating thing, they're just like, oh, I don't want to know about that. But they've got the house at the front of the block that needs renovating, so they're quite happy to go, yeah, go on, we'll pay you, you go do it and look after it all for us, because they're just not interested in that space at all. So yeah, that works well for us as a niche to get into.
Yes.
It's a perfect niche for you too. Okay, so I'm going to ask you one at a time. Felicity, if you had to give one piece of advice to somebody who was thinking about starting their renovation journey, what would that be?
Get educated. I think it's very easy to think, oh, I flicked a bit of paint around my home and I'm a renovator. When you're like me, and I spend a lot of time going to house opens, maybe not so much recently, but I've looked at thousands of houses over the years, and the number of people who think they can renovate and really can't, or don't really have any understanding of what adds value in a renovation, or like styling, or what's going to appeal to the buyer. They spend a lot of money on the wrong things. I think there's a lot more to renovating than just doing something like people see things like the block and think it's so easy, and just chuck a lot of money at it and it's done. But there's so much more to it than that. You've got to have your budget. You've got to understand where's your best bang for the buck, where, how can you use your budget to get the best result that will please the market, and understand all that side of it. It's a business. If you're going to do it as, to earn money as an investor type thing, you need to understand how to run it as a business. Because when you renovate your own home, you really don't care so much about stuff. It's like, if I want that fancy lamp or fancy light shade, I'll just go buy it because I love it. It's my home. I'm going to live here for the next 20 years. But if you're renovating a property for profit, you've got to be a lot more rational and educated about the decisions you make and the choices you make. So I think, knowing what you're doing and understanding the business of renovating, not just renovating, is really important.
Or being willing to actually call someone who does know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like if you've got no idea, reach out to somebody who does. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, I was going to say education was the first one, but don't be scared to have a go.
Yeah.
Don't be scared to have a go. And like what you just said, Belinda, is ask somebody else. YouTube is a wonderful asset. If you don't know how to do something, just YouTube it, but ask our community. Yeah. People will always give you advice, and they're always there to give you a hand. If you want it, they will come. Simple.
Yeah, I totally agree. I like it when people champion each other on as well. That matters to me, but it also makes it very doable and achievable to, especially the newbies. It's really nice.
Well, here's one thing. I mean, I'd love to work with other people in our community. If someone else want to say, can you come and give us a hand? Yes, do it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to give them any advice they want and join.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
I was just going to say that one of the things that's really been important for me when you were asking earlier with Steve about what was the best thing or what's the biggest, best memory you have of what you've done in the property space. And for me, it's always those win-win moments, those moments when I feel like I've gotten what I need or want out of a deal, but the other person also has gotten what they want or need out of it. It was one of the reasons why I did vendor finance for as long and did as many properties as I did, because I gave such a gift to people in terms of home ownership that they couldn't have any other way. And they were just so grateful for that. And I love that moment of knowing I've made such a big difference to people and created such a win-win environment. And it's similar to what Steve was talking about when, I remember walking into Hillside at Lilydale when it was finally finished. And, I'd seen the whole thing along the way and done, been involved at times shoveling dirt or whatever. But to walk in at the end and see the final product of which had come from, and remembering where it had come from and all the discussions of walking around the house and going, well, if we put a wall here and we made this room smaller and shifted the ensuite to there, and all that work and effort and planning and thought and ideas had gone into it, and then walking in and seeing the final product, it's just mind-blowingly satisfying. There's no other way to put it. And I felt like we won just out of doing the renovation. Okay, financially we did too, but to do things that make a difference and make people's lives better or the places they live better, I think it's hugely satisfying.
Thank you so much, you two. So if anybody wants to work with Felicity and Steve, you are really welcome to reach out directly to Property Reimagined. Property Reimagined is at .com.au, and they can contact you guys straight up and have a conversation about what it might look like to bring you guys in on their own renovation project, or obviously if you'd like to work with me, that's available too at renovateandrealestate.com.au. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time. Love your story. It's been wonderful to watch you guys grow and along this journey. And you guys can renovate, no doubt about it.
No worries.
Dynamic duo.
Bye-bye.
Bye.